Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's certainly a warm one, especially here in London in the UK. But my name is Steph Day, and I'm the Careers and Employability Manager here at BARBRI. And it's great to have you with us for this Industry Insight event. And we do run Insight events monthly, so keep a lookout for these. Today's session will focus on the current legal market and how you can gain qualifying work experience to enhance your employability in the legal sector. Whether you're just starting out or if you're further along in your career journey, it's really important to understand how the market is evolving and how to navigate it effectively. So we're joined by a brilliant panel of legal recruiters today. Um, and they're going to be sharing their insights, advice, and practical tips on what firms and organisations are looking for and how you can stand out. And I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. But we've got Sam from Taylor Root, we've got Lewis from the Stephen James Partnership, and we've got Nathan from MLA Global. I'll get my words out in a minute. So thank you all for being here. Really grateful. Just a quick bit of housekeeping before we begin. So the session's going to run for about 45 minutes with time for questions at the end. And if you have any questions, please do pop these in the chat box and we'll aim to cover as many as we can. Please do stay on mute during the session just to minimize any background noise. And just to highlight, we are recording the session as well. Just before we start, I just want to highlight that BARBRI has an exciting new opportunity available, and some of you may be really interested in this because we've actually launched a new qualifying work experience scheme called QWE Bridge to Practice, and this is in collaboration with Sequentus. So students who are preparing for their SQE1 exams with BARBRI in July 25, you've got that opportunity to gain 3 months worth of signed off qualifying work experience over a 6 month period part-time, and it's through undertaking quality legal work online while being supervised by qualified solicitors. So what we'll do is pop it in the chat later so that you can find out more, and if you are interested in applying and you fit the criteria, it would be great to receive your application. So without further ado, over to our panelists to introduce themselves further. And just for a little bit of fun and to ease you in gently, I'm going to ask what your karaoke song would be. So let's make a start. I'm going to go with Nathan first. Nathan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nathan. I'm Executive Director of the Associate Practice Group at Major Lindsey in Africa. So I've been at the firm for 13 years and I've worked in our London, Hong Kong, and New York offices. And now I am responsible for sort of 20 recruiters across the US actually. And I lead our strategy training and development for the associate team. My karaoke song probably would be Proud Mary by Tina Turner. I don't
Great
have any
song.
vocal range whatsoever. But it's my party song, so I thought that would be my fun one.
That is a great song. Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. That certainly would get everyone up. Brilliant. And Lewis?
Hi, yeah, thank you, Steph, for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Lewis Kerr. I am a senior consultant at the Stephen James Partnership. I've been there for 4 years, coming in August. I head up the team that is responsible for paralegal recruitment, predominantly with our private practice and in-house clients. Although paralegal is an extremely broad umbrella term that encompasses a lot of different avenues and can be anything non-qualified. I also head up our interim lawyer team, which focuses on non-permanent roles across our clients as well. As for karaoke songs, maybe much like Nathan, I don't think anyone wants to hear me sing anything. I think I would be quickly shooed off, but maybe like a classic like Believe by Cher or something, something everyone knows and can get people involved. But like I said, I would need a lot of support singers, a lot of people in the background to drown myself out.
Love it. Thank you so much, Lewis. That's great. And over to you, Sam.
Hi, my name is Mears. I head up the Taylor Root private practice team in London. I've been doing private practice recruitment for 11 years, and I've recruited everything from paralegals to support staff all the way up to like senior lawyers in all law firms, every shape and size, all ends of the market. Karaoke song. I have to admit, I actually did this on Tuesday night under duress from a friend, and I'm rather than my chosen karaoke song, the last one I did was actually Uptown Funk. And now you can picture that however you like, but it was all enthusiasm, no ability. So there you go.
That's all you need is that
Yeah.
enthusiasm. So that's great. Thank you so much, Fab. So just kind of moving in and kind of making a start. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I think my first question would be, how would you describe the current state of the UK legal employment market, both in private practice and in-house? And a follow-on question from that would be, which practice areas are particularly active at the moment? Nathan, do you want to start?
Yeah, actually, probably unhelpfully, I'm a bit more unplugged from the UK these days. But I do think it's interesting. One of the things I was thinking about is how the domino effect, you see what happens in the US coming over to London. And when I was working in that market, that's something I often saw. And so if you look at markets like New York and San Francisco and Chicago, which are kind of our major markets, we've definitely seen M&A come back in terms of hiring and opportunity. And there's been a good stream of finance roles coming through. And so my prediction might be that that would start to filter through in London. I think from my colleagues that already has. And then we've had quite a lot of sort of more niche areas, so things like labor and employment. That's been really busy in the US, interestingly, over the past 6 months, and things like tax, where you're finding replacement candidates. But I think that domino effect is something interesting to see because of the popularity of US firms in London increasingly, that I think that has a bit of a steer on the market here.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And Lewis?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the domino effect from the US, because I think our US clients, US law firm clients, are some of the biggest hires in our spaces over this year. I think they where there's been a lot of maybe tentative attitudes going into H1 of 2025 regarding hiring and budgets and approvals for headcount. That seems to be less so with US outfitted companies, whether that's law firms or in-house. In terms of particular practice areas, I agree with Nathan. I think anything kind of deals based, where that was a lot more stagnant in 2024, seems to be kind of picking up, and that is having a cascading effect even down to markets that I found quite quiet over the past couple of years, like real estate is again really picking up again, where real estate, paralegals and support staff wasn't as necessary when there wasn't much going on in the markets, but even that's picking up. But always you're getting your steady flow of contentious work as well, and the litigation side. Lawyers are always making money at the end of the day, no matter what side they're on. So there's kind of that's remained steady. And on an in-house side, I think a lot of our kind of FTSE companies and a lot of maybe more niche outfits, I would say budget and hiring freezes are still a key trend. Is not compared to law firms. In-house seems a little bit more reluctant to go forward with hiring, but I would expect that to pick up in H2, provided that there's no major changes on a global scale, given the economy, which is a huge caveat, depending on what happens.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lewis. And Sam?
I'm going to open by saying I'm not an economist. However, we've recently, from a practice perspective, looked at kind of trends with the UK economy and hiring areas. So kind of hiring areas, and as they kind of change. So from my perspective, we looked at kind of what happened after COVID, the post-pandemic hiring boom, and kind of where we're at now. So you've got credit expansion, then you've got stagnation, and then you've got the period that we're in now, which is the default cycle. So and I think what we're in is a bit of an extended default cycle. So everyone was kind of talking up how it was going to be much better in 2024, and it didn't really come to fruition. What we would then expect to see is deleveraging is the next thing that's coming, and the US law firms, as Nathan mentioned, there will be expected to go first. So what we'd see is an upturn in kind of corporate and finance activities, which comes through into the UK market. We've seen some of that, but then with what happened with Trump's tariffs and everything, there was a bit of a handbrake moment earlier this year. Now what we're seeing is, yeah, the transactional areas are still slowly creeping back. The meetings I've had with US law firms over the last 12 weeks or so are all pointing towards a busier Q4 in terms of the activity turning up, and obviously we see the rest of the work kind of trickle down from that point. But in relation to extended default cycles, areas like disputes, restructuring, insolvency, things like that are still very busy at the moment, but also because we're heading towards that deleveraging phase, corporate finance, even some real estate roles coming through as well, which are really positive signs for a returning market. So it's still tight, it's still slow, but the signs are really positive. There's lots of green shoots around the place. So yeah, good stuff to come.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks, Sam. We've also got Dan. Hi, Dan. Dan's joined us from Elevate. Lovely to see you. Just before I kind of ask you the same question, if you just want to introduce yourself to everyone, and you can't get away with it, what would your karaoke song be?
I was in here, but I was having some technical difficulties,
I'm
and I
so
must admit, I was
sorry.
worried the last person would have to sing it. Sounds like I don't, but no, all good. Thanks, and hi everyone. I'm Dan Lomax. I'm from Elevate. Been in the legal recruitment space for about 7 years now. Currently operating as an engagement manager. Predominantly focus on interim recruitment, both in-house and private practice. And yeah, I think my karaoke song would have to be something by Bon Jovi. I couldn't pick a specific one though. Yeah.
Good choice. Love Bon Jovi and seen them several times. So amazing choice. So you probably heard the question that I asked the rest of the panel, but it was just about describing the current state of the UK legal market and thinking about private practice and in-house and what areas are particularly active at the moment that you're seeing.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say it's really mixed. Private practice remains steady as it always does, but maybe a little more cautious than usual. We're particularly busy in corporate and real estate. And then I'd say the in-house roles are ever growing, particularly in tech, fintech, ESG. Active practice areas, just looking at what we've kind of been doing recently, employment, data privacy. We've seen a real uptick in litigation as well, and regulatory. Yeah, and things feel like they're getting a little more active day by day.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. So one of the questions that I often get asked as a careers advisor is very much about skills and qualities and what's in demand from employers right now. And obviously there's always the set kind of ones that you need to move into a legal role. But would you say there's a particular kind of set of skills or qualities that you're seeing more in demand for employers right now?
Really strong communication skills are always in high demand, but I think in today's market, adaptability, people are being expected to do a little more in some instances. So being happy to kind of roll your sleeves up, get involved in a little bit of everything, commercial mindset, and then just cultural fit and your technical ability as well. But yeah, firms want people who kind of reflect their values. So do your research into that, and you should be okay.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. And Sam, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
From a private practice perspective, it is a little bit more kind of binary in terms of the skill set. You've either got the skill set they're looking for, they haven't. But in terms of those softer skills, yeah, on interview, it's how do you separate yourself from the people you're up against in a highly competitive market. So it's have I gone the extra mile to highlight the things that I've worked on in my previous roles? Have I gone above and beyond to understand those core values that Dan was referencing there, and like, can I reflect them in this interview? But also, can I make my intentions clear? Like, can I really demonstrate what I'd be bringing in my behaviours in this interview, in this setting, or or am I just going to kind of go through the motions and end up being the candidate that's not selected? So it really is just about going above and beyond and really trying to separate yourself from the competition.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's great. And Lewis?
Yeah, I think picking up on that, that's all very true from Sam and Dan there. But I think to pick up on communication, what most of my clients, especially at this kind of QWE paralegal level, are asking for is really strong stakeholder management, which really ties into to communication, as Dan picked up on. But like, I think there's an idea about a paralegal role that is, you know, getting set tasks delivered from one person, just doing those tasks and sending them an email back. But that's not the truth of what people are looking for. People are looking for people that can be proactive in the workplace, you know, not afraid to go up to partners and say, do you need help with this? Like, what is the next step? Obviously doing all of that in the right way, which is not bothering those stakeholders, but getting the right engagement from team leaders, or even client facing. More and more people at those more junior ends of the career being relied on to attend client meetings, and how can you present yourself and build rapport and engagement. So a lot of the times people are falling down from our interview feedbacks is they're really great on paper, technically they can do the job, but we worry that they won't be able to you know, be confident enough to have a conversation with X CEO or the partner of this team or our clients. So more and more it's about how do you bring examples to show that you have managed high level relationships in the past, and that's something that you're capable of.
Yeah, I think that's a really key thing as well. It's all about the demonstrating of these skills. And when you are putting your CV together or you're writing an application form, it's very much about giving examples of when you might have used them. So yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Lewis. And Nathan?
Yeah, I just actually, when Sam was talking about interview prep, it sort of reminded me that I think the bar at the minute, there's a lot of worry around what current mid-levels are like. And I think there's a strong magnification on technical skills and ability, because you've had a generation, you know, with sort of 5 years post-pandemic coming, right? And so I think that those junior mid roles are being scrutinized quite a lot for technical expertise. And so I think all of these qualities, you know, that Lewis and Dan mentioned too, are super important, but the bar's really high. And so I think anything you do to interview prep and demonstrate that well, is just really important in what I'm seeing, you know, when speaking to people.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. So if securing a training contract is proving difficult, how worthwhile is it, do you think, to take on a paralegal role in the meantime? And how flexible do you think candidates should be early on in their kind of career plans? Let's start with Lewis on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think flexibility within your kind of overall structure of what you want to do is really important. I would certainly say getting paralegal roles is like by far and away, and with the introduction of the SQE, becoming more and more popular of a route to qualify. I will say openly, there was a lot of mixed take up of the SQE when it first came out, and I think that's still continuing now. Whether firms are fully embracing, you know, your 2 years qualified work experience and accepting you as an associate really varies depending on the firm you're talking to, but that will only increase more and more. So getting those experiences is really important. However, I think I would be careful in the kind of firms that you're looking to work for or experiences, because if, for example, if your dream is to work private practice, if you get, you know, a year or a year and a half in an in-house environment and you're trying to qualify into private practice, that's going to be difficult. That transition is going to be difficult. Same with, you know, if you're someone who really wants kind of a more local high street firm environment for your later career, but your first paralegal role is in a much larger firm, or vice versa, it's a key consideration. So I think flexibility is important, but flexibility within aligning with what your career aspirations is key. However, I do understand that's difficult if it's your first paralegal role and it's your first entry into the legal market. It can be a tough market, so it might be the case of, you know, getting some experience under your belt and leveraging that from there. But yeah, the value of paralegal roles is important. Most I would say most of the roles we've done this year have had some sort of discussion about how they could progress with the QWE. Not anyone saying there's no promises being made on the market, and I think that would be naive to accept that, but a lot more openness this year than there was last year on how roles can develop into associate positions in in-house and private practice.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lewis. Dan?
Yeah, I think Lewis explained that perfectly, actually. But yeah, it's extremely worthwhile. Early on in your career, I think it's so important to be flexible. It's about gaining these experiences, and then these opportunities often enable that. Ultimately, paralegal work builds practical experience, which a lot of people are looking for, and it demonstrates commitment, and it often leads to those wider internal opportunities. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I've got to add there. I think Lewis covered it.
Brilliant. Sam, Nathan, have you got anything to add to that one?
Yeah, for me, so just the commentary about the uptake of the SQE is important, because what I would say, and I've said this to a few people, is that the SQE came in at a time where there was such a demand for talent, there was some real excitement around it, and it solved a problem in relation to bridging that gap between non-qualified and qualified roles. Unfortunately, as people were kind of qualifying going through, it came at a time when the market went quiet. So the uptake of it, we haven't seen like the full potential as to what it could be. That there are SQE qualified lawyers that are moving from, so I know of somebody who went from an elite US law firm and moved into a top tier international firm. So it was a slight downward step, but in a transactional practice group, there are more and more of those success stories appearing around the market. We're not in a market yet where we're going to see lots of those people being taken up like immediately, but it is coming back. And what we'll see is as the demand for talent increases and the shortage of traditionally qualified people are available, there will be more of a lean on non-traditional qualification means. So that's an important point to note. I would also say, just in terms of advice for people that are starting out, look, flexibility is important, but you've also got to kind of own the walk you're trying to walk, I guess. So if you're somebody who's going, I want to get a training contract, everyone has a tipping point, and it might be a case of I've exhausted my options here and I'm not getting brought in for training contracts, or I'm not making the grade here. So you've got a choice. You either lower your bar in terms of the firms that you're applying to and you expand that out, or you kind of go, actually, I'm better off securing a paralegal role in this type of law firm and trying to work my way up with the acceptance that your move may be from that firm to a step downwards before having to reclimb the ladder. But what I'd say is people that go out and apply only to the Magic Circle law firms and then kind of go, well, I didn't want to work for anybody else. There's over 250 law firms like in central London that are of like decent reputation that I kind of have on my radar, and there's hundreds and hundreds more that sit in the regions and kind of home counties and all the rest of it. There are lots and lots of options. So if that is your aspiration, you need to go and own that and really try and see that through until those options are exhausted. And when that tipping point comes, being flexible at that point and knowing that you kind of hit that marker, you hit that point, means that you can pivot, you can adapt, and that's when good quality paralegal roles with access to QWE and meaningful like work that you're doing is really, really important. So
that's great. Thank you so much. Nathan, have you got anything to add to that?
No, I support all of it. I think what has been
Lovely.
really sage advice there, actually.
Fantastic. So Nathan, I'll start with you then. If someone is applying for QWE opportunities but facing repeated rejections, what practical steps do you think they can take to improve their chances?
It's probably just piggybacking off what Sam just said. I think that was really good about managing your own expectations. One of my favorite cliche phrases is a marathon, not a sprint in a job search, right? And so you just got to keep trying, and it's it doesn't sound that helpful, but you really got to just network, talk to people, keep banging the door, but recognize that to use that magic circle analogy, like if you look at the people there, that you want to be, and you don't have that profile, that doesn't mean it's always impossible, but it probably means it's more unlikely. So go and find, your tribe or your space that, works for you. Career journeys are just never linear. And actually by trying different things and talking to different people and being flexible, you can probably find something that's going to be a more natural fit and make you happy. I think looking nationally and outside of London can be beneficial for some people too. So don't just focus on one thing, really try and broaden that out, because you'll get there eventually. It's just you've got to keep that momentum.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about careers not being linear. I kind of call them a bit squiggly nowadays. You know, there's different ways you might get to that final point, or you may find actually something else suits you better, or you enjoy something else more, you know. So there, you know, it's being resilient and definitely, you know, keeping at it. Anybody else want to add anything to that one?
I think seek feedback wherever possible. Like the amount of times we will ask people what feedback they've received in the past, and they say they don't know, or they haven't asked, or they weren't told. Always try and find that out. It can be really helpful. Really target your CV to these specific roles. Again, on the other side of it, we're amazed at how many jobs are applied to, and they're just so general and could be made more relevant. And then on the flip side, I guess just get creative, show your value through other things, blogs, LinkedIn engagements. There's loads of free courses you could be taking to kind of bolster up your experience, volunteering. And I guess, yeah, just keep the momentum going. Like Nathan said, it will come.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan.
I think Nathan's point on the resilience is really, really important. I think it's really important just to be able to understand the profession that you're trying to break into has a very deliberate high bar of entry. There is a reason that NQs at elite US law firms are earning £180,000. That is not that is a top 1% salary, right? So in terms of the people that are making it into those types of firms and the competition for those spaces, it's supposed to be difficult. So in terms of, I mean, my advice to everybody, so yes, firstly, the seeking feedback point was something I was going to suggest that Dan mentioned, but being honest with yourself as well. If you are facing repeated rejections, if you are finding yourself kind of looking at, all right, this classification of law firm that I'm looking at is not interested in me, like the answer lies with you. Is that because of the educational background? Is it because of who you worked for previously? Like, is it because I didn't perform well on an interview? Like, yeah, the answer sits with you. It's not an external thing. You can seek external help in terms of those courses and things that are provided, but you've got to always, as a first port of call, kind of go, what could I have done better? What can I do more of? Because it's the people that do that stand the better opportunity, and then pick themselves up and go again, that stand the greatest chance of actually securing those roles at that top end of the market and breaking into the profession, generally speaking, to be honest with you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So one of the things that comes up a lot is that students will often ask me, you know, how do I become more visible to law firms, etc. And we talk a lot about LinkedIn. What's the best way, do you think, for students to expand their professional network? But how should they really be approaching employers on LinkedIn without it feeling forced? And Lewis, if I start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big advocate for LinkedIn and the reach that it can get there. I think what I see most of all is people engaging with me and with other employers, and I suppose the biggest mistake people make is not using LinkedIn as a first port of call, is just ignoring it or being too shy to connect or send a connection request. I don't see that as valuable. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, you know. So that's mistake number one. I think mistake number two is presenting yourself on LinkedIn is the full package. It's making sure that you've shared stuff that is relevant to you, making sure that what your profile says something about you and who you are and what you represent and what you want to do. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to make posts on LinkedIn every week or anything like that, but are you engaging with the right kinds of people? If I go on your LinkedIn, are you following the same voices that I'm following in the legal sector? Are you relating that? And that's the same, say you're applying to an employment firm. What are the partners at that firm engaging with? What content are they looking at? And making sure that it reflects that, if that is your goal and ambition. I would always follow up applications with LinkedIn connections with the person who you're applying for in the team, if possible. I would always not forget about HR. They're usually the first people that are going to see your CV, and they're usually the people that control whether your CV even gets to a partner. So don't forget about them. Don't kind of dispute their importance in the process. And then primarily, I think there's an authentic way to engage with people without asking for too much. And say you've submitted an application, I wouldn't ever kind of say, ask for direct feedback over LinkedIn or anything like that, because there isn't a process in place. There's something there that they're going to have to go through to help them, but also to help you in points of like fairness and access to legal industry and diversity and equality. They have to, you know, do everything by the book, and that's completely right. So engaging and sending a connection request saying, hey, just to let you know, I've applied to this role, and I am excited to hear back in due course. Their name will stick out when they're reviewing CVs. That will stick in their mind. But if you're, you know, connecting with a partner and asking for feedback in the next 2 days on your application, they're very busy people, both partners, HR, everyone. So I think requesting too much in an initial message is probably the biggest mistake in it not being authentic or feeling too forced. So kind of light touch advice and going from there is probably my best advice, as well as authentically sharing and engaging with content that is relevant to the kind of jobs that you want.
Brilliant, thank you. Anybody else want to add anything to that one? That's a good answer though, Lewis, thank you. Okay. Commercial awareness, often a term we hear, you know, it's talked about a lot within law, and what I kind of want to gain an understanding from you is, what does it actually mean in practice, and how can aspiring lawyers develop it in a meaningful way? I'll throw that open to Nathan.
Sure. I actually think it's like the worst term. I don't like it at all. I think it's really hard to you know, I think you need your practical experience to be able to understand like the substance of the work. So if you're on, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so like if you're on a M&A deal or litigation or something, and you know, knowing how news and events and things impact that deal and why you're doing that deal, and it's, you know, if it's an energy client, like oil and gas prices impactful on that, will that help or hinder a client's advancement in their business goals? You know, to acquire or merge or something like that. It's really those kind of nuggets, and it's not just reading news. I find it really difficult to I guess kind of help people figure out, because I do think a lot of it comes from just doing the job and being involved in things. That's probably the best way to do that. I guess the other thing, I'm not sure how close it's related, it just made me think about the international aspects of things, especially if you're coming from an overseas jurisdiction, is sometimes just translating your resume into something a bit more local. So when I moved to the US, my partner, he changed his resume so it read, you know, for Americans. And I think sometimes, you know, to Lewis's point about HR people being busy and people read resumes in less than 30 seconds, the more you can ease that. And I'm not talking about, you know, overdoing it, but really thinking like, is this a localized term? Do people know what my title translates to in the local market? And again, being aware, I guess it's some awareness there of where you sit in the market you're going into, I think is also impactful there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. Anybody want to add to that? Sam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of like commercial awareness, and also a term that's closely aligned with, is business acumen, right? And I'd say that I hate that one too. But so part of what Nathan was saying there, that the core part, irrespective of law, you know, is where can I add value? Where is there? What difference can I make? So people who are commercially aware or have business acumen have the ability to step back and say, what is the impact of my actions here, positively or negatively, on the bigger picture? And that's how you make yourself commercially aware. So Nathan gets some great examples of there, of like kind of how things relate to specific deals. But at a junior level, people kind of looking to break in, it's you know, how can I look at this from a different perspective, from a strategic perspective? Whereas you've got people who are your competition being very objective about it, like, or selfish about it. Like, what does this mean for me? And that's a real difference maker. So if you are commercially aware or showing business acumen, it's you stepping back and saying, okay, here's the value that I can add. What more can I do? But it really is as simple as that from my perspective.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm quite conscious of time, and obviously getting some questions in, but just a couple more questions before we finish. One being, looking ahead, what do you think the big opportunities in the legal sector might be in the latter half of 2025 and beyond? Any kind of key themes? Who wants to open that one?
In terms of practice areas or levels of role, or what do you mean?
However you want to answer it, in just in terms of kind of what you think the opportunities could be coming practice wise, but also kind of key themes.
Okay. So just from a practice law firm perspective, but also when we talked about adaptability, there are people here that will go down the SQE qualification route and they will find themselves in a position where they either don't get an NQ role or they start to kind of operate in that capacity and so they want to do something else. I mean, legal tech is exploding, for example. Okay, paralegal roles in their traditional format, as Lewis mentioned earlier, there's a whole host of variety within what that actually means now and where that applies. So, you know, and also you kind of, and I'm saying this having recruited across legal business services and like a whole variety of things in there. You know, it's things like legal project management, and there's also and like different things. The legal profession has a whole host of opportunities within it, and there are plenty of lawyers now that have gone down the traditional qualification route, found themselves at a senior level of PQE and gone, actually, I want to go and be a legal technology expert, or I want to go and do legal project management or practice group management, or there's a whole host of things. There are non-fee earning lawyers that, so people call them PSLs, knowledge lawyers, but also there are non-fee earning lawyers that are doing just business development for one particular team because they happen to know it, right? That there are so many different ways to break into the legal profession. The SQE might be where you start and qualification might be what you're seeking. It might not be where you end though. So that adaptability piece, you know, there's a ton of opportunities in different areas. So don't lose faith. Like I said, own the walk that you're walking, do exhaust those options. But if you get to a point you're kind of going, well, what else can I do? There's plenty. So
yeah. Absolutely. And that's where I think the research is so important, of knowing what other opportunities there could be and really looking into them, because you may actually find something else that suits you, you know, rather than it just being a very traditional route. Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for that, Sam. Anybody else want to add to that?
I think kind of big opportunities and what we're envisioning growing, ESG law, AI, tech, regulation, off the back of all this AI and tech regulation, data protection, cyber law. I think this is all going to be a space that will grow. And then, as Sam said, firms are investing heavily in legal ops and innovation roles. So do think about these as alternative paths when they do open up. They're really interesting. And again, it's utilizing all your skills and more.
That's great. So just on the last question, I'm going to ask, could you share one top tip from, this is going to be a hard one top tip for anyone trying to navigate the legal market now or in the future? What would your top tip be?
Stay proactive and stay open-minded.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. Nathan?
I'm going to go with network. Just go and meet people, invite them for coffee. People like talking about themselves. So just go and meet a bunch of people you can.
Brilliant. Love it. And Lewis?
Yeah, mine would just be stay resilient. I think if you're at the early stages of your career, in a lot of ways, it's the hardest job search you're ever going to have, is getting your first role with quality legal experience. Not saying it won't be challenging later down the line as well, but I think in terms of the mental resilience you need to have to keep going and to enter, as Sam said, a profession which has a really high bar. Just keep trying. You will get there. I've worked in this space for a number of years now, and those that are dedicated and committed do end up in the position that they want to be in, if it is your goal. But just being able to treat every application like it's the first and have as much care and attention is the best way to go about it.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Sam, finally.
that's okay. Yeah, no, I was going to go with resilience too, but obviously Lewis nicked that one. That's fine. I'm going to go with be decisive. I said that kind of, you've decided this is what you want to go and do, and you've got to go and own it. Okay, it's not going to be easy. But at the same time, if you made that decision, whether it be the type of applications you're making, the type of roles that you're looking at, like decide what that is and follow through with it. Like the resilience piece comes after that, but you need to make a decision as to whether this is what you're actually after, and then you need to go and walk that walk, basically.
Brilliant. That's great, thank you. So we've got a couple of questions that have just come in. One is from Abdul. Thank you for this. Today's Legal Cheek newsletter, godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, thinks tech won't hurt plumbers but could spell trouble for paralegals. Could you discuss further, please? Anyone got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's right to an extent, but what they're actually referring to is likely document review. So traditionally there's your practice group paralegal role and there's your document review type roles. So contract review and so first level, second level, that stuff can now be done by AI, as simple as that. And there used to be traditional kind of big document review. You'd have hundreds of lawyers or paralegals on any one particular case. You'd be called in late on a Friday, there'd be loads of you that come in and you'd work on it until it was done. They don't need to do that now. So they've got a machine that can do it, which is really, really clever. However, it won't replace paralegals in the traditional sense. There will be tasks that get outsourced, but a junior level resource, which is below that of a £180,000 newly qualified lawyer, there is definitely a big old gap between the AI automated tasks and that you would expect of a trainee or an NQ, basically. So that space will be filled with paralegals, but that job spec will change over the next kind of like 12, 18 months and continuously from here on out. I can't see that role in its entirety disappearing though.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's what I went back to earlier, stakeholder management, human relationship side of things is you can't replace that. So yes, it might change, the job spec might change, but I think you'll find it being a lot more relational, a lot more people-based and a lot less of course, the document reviews and things like that. The projects that we were doing temp paralegals for last year compared to this year is way down, just because, as Sam said, a program can do it, but they're never going to be able to replace the ability to really analytically think, at least not in the next couple of years, I would say. I'm no AI expert into how that'll be in 2 or 3 years time.
The positive sign though is that means that the tasks that those people will be undertaking will be far more meaningful, right? So that QWE and actual meaningful work, rather than just kind of poring over contracts, it actually upgrades the quality of work that person will be doing rather than downgrades or eliminates it.
Right,
100%.
thank you. Excellent. And one more question's coming from Edward. Thank you for this. He's exploring in-house or private practice opportunities in London and would appreciate some advice on entering the UK legal market as a foreign qualified, non-UK admitted lawyer, because at the moment, I think, he's saying there's demand for international counsel with strong cross-border experience. And do firms consider candidates at the pre-SQE1 stage, or is it more realistic to complete the SQE1 first? So a couple of questions there. Who would like to kick off on that? Any advice on?
I don't mind. I'm reading the question as it going through.
Yeah.
What sort of occurs to me is that you've got to think about who's going to want to hire you and why. And I think your international experience and you've obviously built up a great career, will be relevant somewhere. I think probably getting admitted here, especially if it's in-house, is going to be a good thing in the long run, because if you're working for an organization in the UK, yes, they might want some of your international experience, but they're going to want you to be able to advise on things locally too. But from a law firm perspective, it depends on your sort of practice area, and what sort of thing you've been doing, and also your reasoning, because and I noticed you worked in a few places. So why the UK? And I think you're going to have that a compelling story in the current market to help a future employer understand what why you're coming into London.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Anybody want to add it before we finish?
Just quickly on the SQE piece, we are seeing Commonwealth qualified lawyers coming over without the SQE and being taken on at a discount to their PQE level. So it's not entirely essential to have completed it first. However, if you know well in advance you're going to be arriving in the market and you've made that decision, you want to go and own it, there's no reason that you couldn't have completed that prior to arrival. So how prepared, how serious is this candidate about this opportunity and actually being in the UK? To Nathan's point as to why the UK, it does demonstrate intent, if nothing else. So that's worth considering, but it's not essential. There are people moving over without it and doing it later if they've got intent to stay in the UK, but it is important if you're not coming from a Commonwealth qualified jurisdiction, I think.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you so much. I'm just conscious of time, so just want to say many thanks to our panelists today. Like, we really appreciate all your time and the valuable insights that you've provided. And thank you to everyone else for joining as well. I hope you found the session informative and you've come away with a clearer idea of how to strengthen your position in the current market. Obviously, you can follow our panelists. It would be good to maybe link in with them, and I will ask Jordan if he would mind just popping in the feedback link. If you could just fill this in, it would be great to get some feedback from you on the event. And there's also the link for the QWE Bridge to Practice as well. And there's also a LinkedIn lawyers group for BARBRI, so that's another thing that you might want to take a look at. So Jordan's just popping them in the chat there now. So thank you again to our panelists and everybody for joining. It's been great, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Take care. Bye.